Hello and welcome to our first video of our series about eBay scams and how to stay safe on eBay. This series will go over the main types of scams and the scenarios that sometimes take place on eBay and give you all the information you need about them, and most importantly how to avoid being victim of these scams. So today's episode is on shill bidding. So what is shill bidding? Shill bidding is a method of placing artificial bids on an eBay auction in order to generate false sense of competition in the hope of increasing the price of the auction. Needless to say that this practice is both illegal and is against eBay rules. In 2010, for instance, there was a situation where such person who was conducting shill bidding has been caught and taken to court, and he received £5,000 fine and 250 hours community service. As you can see, there's this article on Tame Bay website that confirms this. So what does eBay say about shill bidding? As you can see, there's the description of shill bidding here. So shill bidding happens when anyone, including family, friends, roommates, employees or online connections, bid on an item with intent to artificially increase its price or desirability. In addition, members cannot bid or buy on items in order to artificially increase sellers' feedback or to improve the item's search standing. So basically eBay is saying here that you're not allowed to bid on items with false pretenses such as described here. So next we're going to look at why would someone actually do shill bidding. Well, so while eBay does provide a vague description of what shill bidding is and why people do it, I will actually go over in more detail. So there are three reasons I believe why someone would actually do shill bidding. So the first reason is the seller wants to avoid the reserve fee. eBay charges 4% fee for setting your reserve for you. So some sellers choose to work around this by placing a fake high bid on their listing. For example, if a seller is selling a smartphone and wants to start the auction at 99p with £400 reserve, there will be a 16 fee for the reserve alone. The seller is avoiding this fee by starting the auction at 99p and putting in a fake bid of £400 at some point during the auction, usually towards the end of the auction, as such high bid in the early stages is too obvious to be a fake bid. So as you can see here, there are the optional listing upgrades, and it does actually say upgrade fee per listing 4% of the reserve price, up to £150 per item, so that is quite a costly fee. So the second reason why a seller would want to do shill bidding is he wants to generate more traffic to the listing. By starting the auction at 99p, any listing will get more traffic. It is actually a proven fact. Even eBay themselves state that there is a policy overview section that explains that shill bidding can be used to increase traffic. Anyway, so this traffic can either be used to promote the seller's other listings or to promote more people to bid on the same item, so as such starting a bidding war. More traffic can mean more potential buyers and a high chance of this bidding war starting. These bidding wars often result in the item selling for the higher end bracket of the typical average selling price. This war will unlikely start if the listing starts with a very high price to begin with, or in other words, starts in the price which is very close to the typical price of the item in question. However, if the bidding war does not start, the seller can always put in his fake reserve bid and prevent his item from selling below what he desires. So the third and the final reason why the seller would choose to do shill bidding is to actually artificially increase the final auction price. The seller is looking to maximize his profits and therefore will log into another eBay account and bid on his own listing to increase the price. The seller will often bid up in small increments to increase the bid to just below the maximum bid of the real bidder, or outbid the real bidder by a small amount to encourage the real bidder to bid higher amounts. So moving on, we will talk about how does one detect shill bidding. There are numerous ways to detect shill bidding. However, no way is 100% guaranteed to provide concrete evidence due to the limited information available to an eBay user. The first and the most obvious is to check seller's feedback for any neutral or negative reviews with comments relating to shill bidding. Obviously avoid any seller who has such reviews in their feedback history. The second way is to check the bid history of the auction. So for instance, I'm just gonna look at this random auction that is finished recently, and this person has obviously been selling the iPhone and an iPad here. So there is a link here where you can click on how many bids there were made during this auction. So in this case there's 32. So if I click on that, it will bring up the bidding history, and it will show me all of the bids that were made during this listing. As you can see, the actual seller's account names are hidden, so you cannot see what these sellers are. But what you can see is the various statistics about these sellers. So for instance, if I click on the winning bidder here, I will get to the next page, which shows me his bid history. So there are two very important metrics that you can look at to detect any foul play. Bid activity percentage with this seller. So this guy has 0, so obviously he wasn't bidding on any other items with this seller, so he made a single bid, and for some reason it should normally increase slightly, but it's still 0, so that means most of his bids were made with other sellers. So most sellers who commit this fraud are too lazy to make new fake accounts, so they will likely reuse the same fake account to repeatedly bid on the items that they're selling. However, also review how many items in total the seller has bid on. So if he bids on many items and the bid activity value is high, close to 100, this gives a high chance shill bidding activity is occurring. However, if the bidder has 100% bid activity with the seller and he only bid on one item, this of course does not give any evidence. So for instance, this guy has made a total of 310 bids in the last 30 days, and obviously he has 0% activity with this seller, so there's nothing suspicious. But for instance, if we just click on another random bidder like this guy, again you can see he has a low percentage, so 6% and 16 bids in total. Let's just look at someone else. So this guy has a high value. He has 60% bids activity with this seller, but that does not mean he's been shill bidding, because his total bids are only 5. So if you see a high value in this percentage of bid activity and the high value in total bids, like I don't know, 50 or 100 bids, then that means there is most likely shill bidding going on. Another thing you can look at is bid retractions. So as you can see, there are bid retractions in the last 6 months. Generally, a shill bidder would actually often retract their bids in case they overbid the actual real bidder. So they would actually retract the bid and then put a slightly lower bid. If you see a bidder with a high amount of bid retractions, that means they are most likely shill bidding and constantly retracting and then putting their bids back on. Like for instance, this guy has 0, so if the winning bidder or other bidders below him have 0, that means there is unlikely anything suspicious going on. Like I can see that most of these people here have 0 bid retractions, so that's normal, because it's very uncommon for you to need to actually do a bid retraction. Most genuine bidders will not ever need to do this. Lastly, another way to check if there is shill bidding activity going on is to check the seller's history of sold items. So for instance, looking back at this seller again who sold this iPad, if I just go to his profile and have a look at his items for sale, and then look at the sold listings, so I can see that he's only sold this iPad once, which is good. So basically this will allow you to check if the seller is repeatedly selling the same exact item. So if the seller is selling the same unique item time after time, it may suggest that he is winning it himself with his fake account and then simply relisting it. In other words, his hidden reserve price is not being met. But really do make sure it is the same item, such as if it is a used item, does it have the same wear marks in the same places, or if the product serial number is shown, is it the same number? Also, you can message the seller and ask him why he is selling the same item again and again, if you spot him actually selling it again and again. If he says something like the winning bidder did not pay and he sold the same item over 3 times, it is very unlikely not to be true, and he is probably shill bidding. So how does one avoid being the victim of shill bidding? Luckily, it is very easy to avoid shill bidding. Here are the actions you need to take. First, you should research the price of whatever item you're thinking to bid on. You can do this by checking up sold listings. eBay allows all users to see any eBay listing that ended in the last 90 days. Simply use the eBay search and type in the item name you're interested in, and when the results come up, look along the left section and check completed or sold listings, and in this case you'd actually want the sold listings. The page will refresh and you'll see only sold listings. As you can see here, I can see all of the iPhone 6s that has been sold recently, and from this I can read the various item descriptions and work out what the average price is. However, if you're buying something unique which is not often on sale, it may be hard to find the average selling price. In this situation, you need to simply think about what your budget is for this item and set a figure in your mind. Now the second action is, the easiest way to avoid shill bidding is to never bid until the very end of the auction. Literally, I mean you have to bid in the last few seconds of the auction. This way the seller will not have enough time to react and bump up your bid. Do not bid more than your researched or average price if you want to avoid overspending or leaving the seller an opportunity to bump up your bid. So third, if you do not have time to sit around and wait until the end of the auction to bid on, this is especially useful if the auction ends at an inconvenient time, such as the middle of the night. You can use an auction sniper. This is a program which places the bid for you in the last few seconds of the auction. Great news is that it is absolutely free and safe, and you don't even need to download anything. One such service is Gixxen. So I'm just going to quickly show you what it looks like. This is Gixxen.com. You log in with your eBay username and password. It's completely safe and it's free. It says it's 99.5% reliable, but I have been using it for a couple of years now and I've never had a single problem with it. So the service will actually put a bid in for you in the last few seconds. I mean, you can even put a bid in the last 3 seconds. So that will mean that nobody will have the time to react and bump up your bid artificially. So that's a really good way to avoid shill bidding and save time, because sometimes you literally find a good auction which ends next week and then you forget all about it, so by the time you look at it, it's already sold. So this service can save you a lot of time. So the last section of this video is what to do if you won the auction and you suspect you've been a victim of shill bidding. In other words, you feel that somebody has artificially bumped up your bid, and you now feel that you're going to be overspending. So if you are in this situation, you can do one of the 3 things. So first, research the facts by following the steps I provided earlier in this video. If there is good evidence suggesting shill bidding, contact the seller and inform him that you want to cancel the purchase because you suspect him of shill bidding, and state your evidence, such as there has been other bidders with high amount of bids with the same seller, or whatever other evidence you have, such as high amount of bid retractions that the other bidders had. Usually the seller will get scared because he will see that you are not an average user and you are well informed, and he will cancel the listing, meaning you do not have to pay what you bid on the item. So the second step is, if the seller does not cancel the listing or simply ignores what you said, he may try and open an unpaid item case against you later on. You do not want an unpaid item strike registered against you, so contact him again and tell him that unless he cancels the sale, you will report him to eBay as well as his local police and or online fraud department. For good measure, you can send him the following link, so he will know what is coming. For instance, this article here. By this point, the seller will usually get very scared and cancel the sale. If he does not do that and proceeds to open the unpaid item case, you should call eBay customer support and inform them of all the information you have gathered so far. Try to get the customer support person to connect you with one of the supervisors, as this yields better results. To do this, keep saying that you do not feel that the customer support person has dealt with your inquiry efficiently enough and you wish to speak to the supervisor. Usually it works and they will connect you. These customer department supervisors are actually very effective, and then they would normally step in and manually cancel the sale there and then for you. So I had to do that myself a few times and it worked really well. So these are the things you can do if you have been the victim of shill bidding and you do not want to pay the amount that you bid on because you feel that the price was manipulated. So hopefully you found this video useful. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe buttons, and leave your comments below to either suggest what other ways you can tackle shill bidding, or if you'd like us to make another video about a particular different scam that sometimes occurs on eBay. Thanks for your time.